pro-lifers because of my pro-life position. Then we have the Second Amendment people who see government encroaching on their Second Amendment rights. So we're trying to put together the coalition that I think has never been tried before in the state of New Jersey, that will allow an outsider, a real outsider, to go to Washington and work with both parties and say, tell me why you think this piece of legislation is good for the American people in general. Not just a slice of the American people, but the common good. They talk about the common good, the general welfare. Well, that means that no one should be harmed by your legislation. We know taxes harm people because it takes money out of their pockets.
Right.
So you don't raise taxes, and you don't spend, because when you spend, someone's getting a benefit they didn't earn.
Murray, your philosophy, government philosophy, sounds not unlike that of former Congressman Scott Garrett. He was dethroned, if you will, by Josh Gottheimer, essentially, I think, on the argument that he was resisting government funds that Gottheimer said could alleviate local tax burdens. Do you think that's an oversimplification?
Yeah, I mean, Scott in the Republican Party, I mean, I share things with Democrats as well on civil liberties, on pro-peace. So you can't pigeonhole libertarians, because we have ideas that's based upon a simple principle. Don't commit aggression. In fact, let me give you what the essence of libertarianism, which I heard from a rabbi of all people, in 1967 when I was watching a show on Passover when I was an undergraduate, and he talked about Judaism. He said the essence of Judaism is the sanctity of the individual. That to me is the essence of libertarianism. It's the individual is the fundamental unit of civilization. And then we have the family as the collective unit, and then we have the voluntary community that people work in and live in. And after the '97 election, when I was the Libertarian candidate for governor, I got a call from a rabbi, or a letter, asking me to speak to the congregation, and I said, how about the talk would be why Jews should be libertarians? The Ten Commandments is a libertarian document. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal.
So what would you say is the sanctity of New Jersey right now, as practiced?
Well, this is why the culture of the Northeast and the West Coast is government is the solution to a lot of ills. In other words, it's the myth, we're from the government and we're here to help you. The government cannot help anybody unless it hurts somebody through taxation or regulation. And people have to understand, government may give you a benefit, but someone's going to be hurt by that benefit. People have to be taxed. And then you have people like Bernie Sanders and others saying people have to pay their fair share. I don't know what that means. When you go into the store, they don't ask you what your income is. Here's the price. You either buy the product or you don't buy the product based upon how much value you think it's giving to you.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to taxation, my wife and I have not had children in 50 years of marriage, yet we're paying a fortune in income taxes and property taxes that we get no benefit from. Zero.
But isn't the essence of society compromise? In
Yes.
other words, we have to live with one another.
That's why voluntarism is the compromise. Voluntarism means, if I don't like you, I don't have to deal with you. I don't like your business, I don't have to buy from you. You don't like me as an employee, you don't have to hire me, or you can fire me. But businesses have to work in a very narrow parameter. In other words, they can't keep on firing people. It's very expensive to hire and fire people constantly. So they want to develop a loyal workforce to complete the mission of the business. And businesses that do that do exceedingly well, and businesses that don't, because management does not give a coherent rationale for the mission of the company, they falter. And where's J.C. Penney? Sears? Radio Shack is gone. Companies that don't have a coherent mission, or they have challenges in the marketplace that they can't compete with, they go out of business. That's the natural phenomenon of business. It's what Joseph Schumpeter said, it's creative destructionism. So what's replacing these businesses? You've got Walmart, you've got Target, you've got Kohl's, you've got Amazon, you've got all these other businesses coming up. So this is the nature of business. We see this throughout American history. Businesses that were around 100 years ago, some of them are no longer around. Businesses that were around 50 years ago, or weren't around 50 years ago, are thriving. 20 years ago, the Amazons of the world, the Targets of the world. So, well, the Target was Dayton Hutton, so they've been around for a while. But look at the car companies in my lifetime Airlines. Look how many of them are no longer around, and yet the airlines are doing quite well. More choices are coming into the marketplace of efficient carriers, and it's getting tighter and tighter in the seats.
How does that impact our New Jersey reliance historically on ratables? In other words, the way people have consumed goods really require these stores, big box stores, were the rage over the last 20 years. With increasing reliance on the internet, do you see our ratable base under siege conceivably? And what does it mean for societal planning, etc.?
Here's the problem. The disconnect between property taxes and government services. Most of these government services can be done through the nonprofit sector or the profit sector. I wrote that in Tax Free 2000 22 years ago, 23 years ago. I point out virtually everything that government does can be done without government overseeing this, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education. And my solution to the education issue is we have the model in terms of higher education. You have parents paying tuition, parents at the local level can form local co-ops, and the best way to educate kids is is a small classroom. You don't have that in the big schools because it's very expensive, and they're very expensive to run these big schools. So we can do a lot of things, and now with the internet, you can do a lot of education online. You don't need the big box schools to teach kids, and so I think technology can drive a lot of the innovation in healthcare, in education, in retailing, which they're already doing. It's just a matter of people who are used to the old-fashioned way are resistant to change. Look at the post office. Who writes letters anymore? It's all email. People don't even send cards anymore. It's all done by e-cards. So we're seeing evolution of society based upon technological innovation, and people have to adapt. That's the nature of the human race. You adapt physically, you adapt culturally, you adapt socially, you adapt economically.
Could you tell me a little bit about the Murray Sabrin for Senate campaign? What are you doing?
Sure.
How is the coalition building that you talked about earlier being manifested out there, and what do you have coming up in terms of events, etc.?
Labor Day is coming up. Everyone will be back from vacation. People will be focusing on the campaign. We commissioned a poll. It initially showed me at 7%, but then when we asked, the poll asked questions about the candidates, I was up to 16%. So there is, I think, a support out there once people get to know my position on a whole bunch of issues, whether it's fiscal responsibility, whether it's pro-peace, whether it's civil liberties, whether it's pro-Second Amendment, whether it's all the things that people say they care about. Nonprofit sector and helping people, that's the best way to help people. In fact, Peter Drucker wrote the manifesto of how to help people. He said the nonprofit sector is the best way to do so, and he did so strictly from a pragmatic point of view, not from an ideological point of view. And I think I'm the only one in the country quoting from that article from the Wall Street Journal of December 1991. It's a magnificent article. It puts social policy in perspective. The best way to deal with people's issues is at the local level through the nonprofit sector, volunteerism. The way America was built was through the mutual aid societies in conjunction with the private enterprise system, the free enterprise system. So what we're doing is putting together the coalition, speaking around the state. Ron Paul gave me a wonderful video endorsement that's on our website. It's just magnificent. He doesn't endorse many people. Senator Rand Paul, Republican, just endorsed Libertarian Gary Johnson for the U.S. Senate in New Mexico. I'm hoping the senator will endorse me, since his father was a supporter of mine. I've been a big supporter of Ron Paul since he was in Congress in the early 80s. I first learned about him in the 1970s. He's been one of the great heroes of our lifetime, explaining that we need to have a smaller government. We need to have the Federal Reserve stop manipulating interest rates. This is one of the big issues of our time. We've had the dot-com bubble, we had the housing bubble. Now some people say we have the everything bubble. The everything bubble is where everything's inflated. A Ferrari just sold for $48 million at auction. In a sound money economy, that would not happen. Paintings are going for $150 million. You could buy, years ago, you could buy whole companies, great companies, for $150 million. Now little paintings are going for $150 million. That means the Federal Reserve has a inflated the supply of money, and that money is looking for a home, whether it's in collectibles, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in stocks, bonds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.